Hello, I'm Pam of HealingStars.com. This is the chart for the new moon, 25th of May 2017. It's 2044, which is summertime in London. However, I'm using whole signs to represent the houses, and therefore Gemini is sitting over here. Here it is, the moon and the sun at 4 degrees of Gemini. Now, what is incredibly powerful about this particular new moon is that and I'm using what they call very tight orbs, so you can see a very clear picture rather than a lot of charts you might see which are every single connection, it just looks a mess. But I want you to have some clarity about what's going on at this time. The most important and strong connection of two planets is this very heavy red line here. It's to do with Pluto in Capricorn and Venus in Aries. Now, Venus is the goddess. Venus is relationship, love, beauty, harmony. In the sign of Aries, Venus is the pioneer. She can be quite strident, but she's also got a lot of courage and very independent. She's a warrioress. Pluto is the god of the underworld, the unconscious. And unfortunately, in the UK, that's what we've been experiencing over the last 2 days. Because the other very important connection of two energies are to do with Mars and Saturn. Here's Mars, also in Gemini, and then Saturn is opposite. And they form a right angle, a T-square. It's called to Chiron, the wounded healer archetype. Mars and Saturn. Mars is the god of war. Saturn is to do with endings, and these two are known as malefic planets. And sure enough, this was very, very strong at the actual time of that appalling bomb in Manchester. And my heart truly goes out to all of those who have been affected. It's one of those incidences that, because children are involved, it seems senseless. So just pausing for a moment to honour those, but also to honour those who really came to the rescue, who walked in when others might have wanted to walk away, to offer shelter, taxi drivers giving free rides. People were amazing. And I do believe that is a quality that when disaster strikes, people rally, they come round, they show their best. Now, Mars wants to move ahead. That's the energy of Mars. Saturn is the opposite in the sense of Saturn is a brick wall. So if you're driving a car, it's as if you're driving with the brakes on. And therefore, this is what we're coming up to. This is the new moon energy. Mars will be moving steadily, will move away from that difficult connection to Saturn. You might have found that in your own life. You might have found you want to move ahead, but something's stopping you. Now, in my world, I call that the ego. And Saturn is about fear, it's about resistance, it's about procrastination. The ego is you're not good enough, you're a failure, no one wants to listen to you, whatever that voice is that stops us moving forward. Mars is a planet to do with courage. And in Gemini, which is where the sun and moon are, it's about all of us to find our voice. What do you need to communicate? What do you need to have the courage, Mars, to give voice to in the coming months, and especially, of course, from one new moon to the full moon? The answer is with compassion, which is what Neptune and Chiron are talking about in the sign of Pisces. Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer, and it's in Chiron. It's a long stay for Chiron in the sign of Pisces. It's a 50-year orbit, so it was in Pisces in the 60s. So anyone born in the 60s, you are going through Chiron back where it was at your birth. And Pisces is to do with miracles. It's to do with faith in the unseen world. It's a magical world. It's the enchantment realm. And how many of us played with the fairies at the bottom of the garden when we were kids? It's that extraordinary beauty, and brings hope and trust. And whatever the media might say, I do believe that people have good hearts. Uranus. Uranus is the planet of unpredictability, and it is forming what we call a grand trine in fire energy with Saturn and with the North Node. Now, the North and South nodes are to do with eclipses. They pass through signs about 1.5 years and they go backwards through the zodiac. And the nodes have just changed. They were moving through Virgo and Pisces, and now they're in Leo and Aquarius. And the next eclipse, the most important one of the whole year, will be 21st of August. Enough of that later. But fire brings passion, enthusiasm for life. And Uranus, because it is a planet that can change our minds, whatever it does, can see things differently. And this is an opportunity to bring the new, which is Uranus, in combination with Saturn, which is the old, the establishment. And Venus, of course, moves, well, of course, but I know this, and hopefully you do too. Venus moves fairly fast at the moment. So she's coming to join Uranus. I'll put these dates on my website. And that is a day of anything can happen. Theresa May actually went for this election when the Sun and Uranus and Mercury were all together. That was the shock, surprise. So be prepared for surprises, and good ones, because that Venus-Uranus connection is in a very good position with Saturn. Therefore, this is not a rash thing. This is something that stands a good chance of succeeding. The planet that governs Gemini, I haven't forgotten, but planet is Mercury. Here's Mercury. It was retrograde, it's now moving forward. It's rising before the sun in the sky. It's a morning star, a morning star, as is Venus. And that is Mercury as a scout. Mercury has two roles, it's a scout or it's a psychopomp. Rising before the sun, it's getting new information. And what I have been looking at very strongly, because I have a journalist background, is what is the truth? What are we to believe? And I've been disappointed by some of the reporting that I have witnessed about events at the moment and about politicians. Mercury in Taurus is very stable, but it can also be very stubborn. That's the difficulty. It's much happier when it moves, and it will do just before our election, interestingly enough, in the UK, into its own sign of Gemini. At the same time, Venus will move into her sign of Taurus. But things are a little tricky, shall we say, to say the least, at this moment of time. I believe, as I said, in the goodness of people, and that is to do with goodness and trust in people, is Jupiter. Jupiter is also very soon about to move forward, and that again is very close to the election. It's the day after. Things are really in flux at this time. So Jupiter in the sign of Libra is to do with the heart. It's to do with Venus. And it is, of course, the truth. So when we know in our hearts what is true, and we follow our heart rather than our intellect, our head, and dissociate from our feelings, that to me is the way forward. So again, thank you for watching. I'll put some dates on my newsletter, my blog newsletter, and hopefully you'll contact me. I'm also offering now a wonderful guided meditation that I often give away in webinars, and I've made it into a small, short 11-minute guided meditation. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you can receive that, and if you want to sign up, you'll receive that as well. Thank you for watching. Pam Carruthers of healingstars.com.